yourself that question. I believe 100% that you have all the answers inside of you as a parent raising challenging, sensitive children, as teachers, challenging, sensitive children, trying to educate a whole classroom of children. I believe you have every resource and solution within you to be able to create the breakthrough in your home, in your classroom that you've always wanted to. But the problem is that when we fail, we judge ourselves. And guess what judgment does? Judgment creates more stress. Guess what stress does? Stress suppresses the short-term memory. And then guess what happens? We end up doing the same thing over and over and over again. So plan to fail. Plan marvelously. Don't judge yourself. Don't shame yourself. Learn from it and figure out, how can I do it different next time? Hello there, Lydia. How can I do it next time? How can I do it different next time? And the other thing is, severe behavior is predictable, guys. It's predictable. Don't let anyone tell you that it's not. Don't let your own brain convince yourself that your children are catching you by surprise, because they are not. When you are stressed, your attunement radar is dialed way down. When your attunement radar is dialed way down, it's because you're in survival. When you're in survival, you're focused inward on yourself, and you miss all the cues your children are giving you leading up to that big outburst. Severe behavior is always predictable. The outcome of severe behavior doesn't look like that in the buildup. That's the thing. You think that your child's big aggressive outbursts or knocking a hole in the wall, like, what are they supposed to start doing this? And then it just gets louder and louder and louder, and pretty soon it's a big boom? No, it doesn't work like that. The signals work when they come in from having been away from you all day and they slam the door. The signals are when you ask them if they want something to eat and they don't eat all day. The signals when they spent 5 hours on a video game and you ask them to get off and they get all cranky and grumpy. Those are signals. You have to listen to those things and then practice prevention instead of waiting and having to intervene. It's not about the behavior. All behavior arises from a state of stress. So it is the delinquent behavior, the socially delinquent illegal behaviors that they engage in that gives them the adrenaline rush to help them combat the depression, and it's just a negative feedback loop. And so let me tell you where I'm going with this. I'm going to start doing a little experimentation with some of our adolescents. And what I'm going to do, especially the ones who have a tendency to be drawn into illegal activities, social activities. And really, years ago when I had group homes in Virginia, I had a friend who was a Navy SEAL, and he was going to take us out on a night trip, because that's, Navy SEALs like to lurk around in the dark and in the mud and in the water and in the rivers. And he was going to take us out on this overnight trip. And lead us through this process. And I thought that'd be really cool for the boys to participate in. But then I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to be out in the dark and the mud and the mosquitoes. And so it never actually came together. But it's always the seed of that's always been in my head. And I think that some people try to do that with the wilderness things. But I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about, how do I create positive adrenaline responses for these individuals who are addicted to adrenaline, but their addiction, the way they're following it, the way they're achieving it is through illegal means, which then ends up creating more stress and more problems for them. So how can I create adrenaline opportunities for these kids, these teenage kids, to help also combat their depression? So I'm going to be looking at, maybe you guys have some ideas, you can email me, but I'm going to be looking at things like bungee jumping and skydiving and cliff diving and hand gliding and rock wall climbing and surfing. So activities that are a lot more adrenaline heavy.
A new paradigm, when you're talking about wrapping your mind and your heart and your way of being around a new way of understanding humans, a new way of understanding your child, a new way of understanding yourself and your spouse, your colleagues, your co-workers, your own parents, all those things. Anytime you're branching into a new way of understanding these things, it really helps to have support. It helps to have repetition. It helps to hear it from different people. So, not just Brian's voice, but my voice, or my friend Allison, and some other people who've done advanced trainings with Brian. They do book studies as well. And so, the same, maybe you need to hear, how I say it, it's going to be different than how Brian says it. How Allison says it's going to be different than how Brian says it. How Amy talks about it is going to be different than how Brian talks about it. Different voices will resonate differently. And repetition will help you be able to really integrate this. I mean, it's a big deal to integrate a whole different way of understanding. But I'll tell you, once you integrate a trauma-informed way of thinking, blessing or curse, double-edged sword, you almost cannot help but see it. You can't help but see the dynamic of underlying trauma as it's played out in relationships, or as you're, even as you're watching TV, you're like, oh my gosh, I can see the history. I can imagine what that person's early life experience might have been like based on the things that they're projecting in their adult life in the present moment. And so, man, it's so valuable. It's so valuable. And it helps us to really understand that we really are doing the very best we can at any given moment, and how we can help with what the best we can looks like.
I want to go back to that element of when we're outside of our window of tolerance, our kids are on our last nerve. We feel we can begin to regress to these places that are a little more adolescent. We feel like our kids are sort of picking on us. The person, and I wish I would have known who was speaking at the time, but I was just listening. I had an audio, not a video. She used this analogy. I thought it was great, about how, remember when you were a kid and you would play tag, and when you're little, really little, and you're playing tag, at first it's really fun, right? You're like, and you're running around. As soon as you get tagged, though, you felt so defeated. I don't want to play anymore. This isn't fair, blah, blah, blah. We can feel like that too, even as full-blown grown adults, right? So one of the things that I think is really helpful when you're playing tag with little bitty kids is for them to have space where they can run to that base and touch it, and that means that you can't tag them anymore. They get a chance to kind of pull themselves back together, right? And then what little kids do is they'll go and they'll get on base after being all freaked out and feeling all like a failure and like everybody's picking on them. When they get on that base, and then they turn around and they notice everybody's having fun and everybody's safe. You give them a little room, take it all in, and before you know it, they'll be back out there in the mix playing again, right? Well, so for us as adults, when we are outside of our window of stress tolerance and we start feeling like we're being picked on by our kids, we're feeling defeated, we're feeling rejected, make yourself a safe base, a safe place in your home. That's your base, right? So it could be, the woman who was talking, she said her safe base was couch. It might be a special chair that you have or whatever, but that's your place. And when you claim that place and you sit in that place, regardless of what anyone else around you may think, this is your time to just breathe and notice and realize that, yes, I am a grown-up. Yes, I was feeling very childish and even behaving very immaturely, but that happens.
When you set a chore for your child to do, you have to commit to training them to follow through until they're able to do it to completion every single time. Some days they'll hop up and they'll make that bed and they'll clean that room and they'll take that trash out, and you're like, fantastic, you're the greatest child in the world, I love you so much. And then other days, the very next day, you're like, hey, what happened to my fantastic, amazing child? And then all of a sudden there's this big battle. See, that's what you got to realize. The children have a window of tolerance for how much stress they can handle. Yes, chores is stressful. Yes, you can look at it as your child being willfully disobedient, but it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you to focus on your child being a threat and just doing things against you. Look at them as being stressed. And when you look at them as being stressed and you look at them as being emotionally regressed, it changes your internal physiology. Woosah. And instead of getting upset with them, you just say, uh-oh, something's going on. What's going on, buddy? Hey, buddy, what's going on? What do you mean? You didn't make up your bed like you usually do. What's up? You need help? How can I help you? How can I support you? See, I'm not letting him off the hook. I'm just connecting, I'm understanding, I'm affirming, and I'm offering guidance. I'm offering teaching. I'm offering support. There's no blame. There's no threat. There's no nothing. Hey, kid leaves the shoes on the floor. You know what you do? Hey, honey, come here for a minute. Yeah? You just pick your shoes up. Tick-tock, tick-tock. I didn't say anything. Tick-tock, tick. Means nothing. They'll go pick their shoes up. Maybe sometimes you just pick it up for them. Just pick the shoes up. Let them know. Let them see. Hey, here's your shoes. Set them down. Guess what that's doing? That's teaching them how to pick up shoes and put them in their appropriate place. You just have to be committed to the training. So, enough of that. Okay, so last thing I want to talk about is this thought about high-risk teens. See, this is one of the beauties, like when I'm like enclosed in tight spaces for long periods of time with very little human interaction, I get to really think about this stuff.
Choose love. Choose love. Choose love. Choose love.